Hello, Big Reds. This is Mr. Official talking. Sorry, my voice is not 100% yet, but today we're going to talk about Unit 3, Learning Target 6, video number 1, and that is I can identify congruent triangles, list their corresponding parts, and write their congruency statements. So you're probably thinking, what makes something congruent? Congruent, something that's the same size. These two pencils are not congruent. Okay? But you might have this sheet of paper and this sheet of paper are congruent. They have the same corresponding parts, and that's important. So what do I mean by that? Okay, so I'm going to zoom in. Make sure you have this sheet right here, congruence and triangles. Zoom in this sheet right here. It says triangle DEF is congruent to triangle KJI. What does that mean? Looks kind of funny to me, all right, if I first look at it. All right, well, you can see every triangle has 3 sides and 3 angles, right? Okay, so the key is for triangles to be congruent, all of their parts have to be congruent to all the parts of this triangle. So all the parts of DEF have to be congruent to all the parts of KJI. Okay, so if I'm looking at DE, DE is congruent to KJ because they both have the same mark, right? Now, in this congruency statement, notice DE is in the first 2 spots, KJ is also in the first 2 spots. Okay? All right, next, EF. See how that's in the next 2 spots? That's congruent to JI in these 2 spots. Then finally, D and F, first and last, is congruent to K and I. Just like that. Okay, so those parts are congruent. So if you look here, it says FD is congruent to what? Well, if you look up here in the congruent statement, FD is in the same position as IK. So it would be IK. All right? Next, if you look at BAC is congruent to LMN. Also, the angles in the corresponding positions are also congruent if the triangles are congruent. What do I mean by that? Well, if I look at B, B is in the same position as L. So B has got to be congruent to L, right? A is in the same position as M. So A and M are congruent. Finally, angle C is in the same position as N. So C is congruent to N. Now notice I have the different numbers of marks and arcs that tell me the different angles are congruent, so I know which one is which. Okay? So it says angle A is congruent to what? All right, if you look at A and M are in the same position. So angle A is congruent to angle M. All right, let's go down here. Let's go all the way down to this one, number 5. So it says triangle ZXY, ZXY is congruent to ZXC. So Z is congruent to Z, let's mark that. X is congruent to X. And Y is congruent to C. So it asks us, what is Y congruent to? Y is congruent to angle C. Let's fill in the other parts. ZX is congruent to ZX. XY is congruent to XC. And ZY is congruent to ZC. All right? So that's an example of looking at corresponding parts. Now, looking down here at number 7, Write a statement that indicates that the triangles in each pair are congruent. Well, I'm going to start off with a triangle, and I'm going to pick any 3 points in any order in this triangle. So I'm going to say I, J, K. Now, if I want to write a congruency statement, if all the parts are congruent, they have to line up. So if you look at I has 3 marks, right? So S also has 3 marks, so that's what I'm going to start with. J has 1 mark, and T has 1 mark, so I'm going to put T second. And K has 2 marks, R has 2 marks, so R is going to go right there. So this is going to be my congruency statement. Now I can also check it. IJ has 3 marks, and ST also has 3 marks, so that works. JK has 1 mark, and TR has 1 mark. Finally, IK has 2 marks, SR has 2 marks. So I've checked it. My statement works. Okay, flip your paper over, please. On mine, I have a different sheet. Let's try one more of those. Let's look at number 10. Okay, number 10. We want to write a congruency statement. So I'm going to start with this triangle on the left has we'll go IRS. It's like you're getting taxed or something. All right, it's congruent to, now if I look at I has 3 marks, T has 3 marks, so it must be T next. Okay, R has 2 marks, S has 2 marks over here, so this is S. And this S has 1 mark, this R has 1 mark. So your congruency statement should be triangle IRS, triangle TSR. Now you're probably asking, you said, Mr. Fischel, what if I do this a different way? What if I say triangle RSI is congruent to something? What if I start something differently? Would it be wrong? Well, the answer is no. No, you could do it different ways too. R, you see, was here before, so this one's going to start with S. S was second before, was last before, now it's second. So R is going to come up here. And I, so it's going to be T. So R still goes with S, S goes with R, and I goes with T. So it's going to be the same thing no matter which way you write it. Okay, let's look at number 13. Last one I'm going to do with you today. I'll make a short video. How about that? So B is congruent to M. D is congruent to L. And C is congruent to K. All right, so here are your directions. There's several more to go. I want you to finish the sheet. All right. If you have any questions, please raise your hand, and Mr. Fischel, myself, will be happy to answer any questions for you. Hopefully you enjoyed this shorter than normal video. Your formative assessment for this will be at the end of the class hour, so make sure you remember what you learned. Go Big Reds!